to noon, there's been a distinct musical change. What the heck happened? Brett Blakemore, there you are. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. I appreciate you helping out. PA is he's on his way down to Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center in Eagan. They will be departing for Cleveland today. A couple of joint practices tomorrow and Thursday. We'll have the Friday feast from Cleveland and the shores of Lake Erie on Friday morning. Looking forward to that. Apparently now we're looking forward to an impromptu Zoom call, an impromptu Zoom. And I've sent you said intel on that, Brett. And as we open the show today, I'm going to do, and I have somebody in studio with me because he loves the Vikings more than I love the Vikings, and I grew up in a city in which Vikings training camp was held. I want to get to him momentarily. Who the hell is Robbie Rosenhaus? That's a question that has been following the walls of the fan for years now. But we talked in the open, Brett, that we're starting to do some audits around here about specifically the 64686 Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. We've received several complaints that knowledgeable, well-spoken Vikings fans aren't able to get their messages through because you are blocking their phone numbers. Are you familiar with
specifically?
That is correct, yes.
Why would I do such a thing?
Several complaints about it.
Okay.
And so I'm giving you the heads up that keystrokes are being logged. And that camera behind you will tell the entire story.
Okay.
And the truth's going to come out. So watch yourself.
The truth cannot be controversial.
You understand?
Okay.
We are the home of the Vikings.
Yes.
Not your team. Just joking. I love you.
I know.
How you doing, Robbie?
I'm good, Nordo. How are you, bud?
Well, this Zoom call's a little ominous.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's the Spidey sense is going off here.
No, it was such a casual way that he said it yesterday too. Where, JJ does his thing on Saturday. We're really excited about it. I got a bunch of text messages that I do want to get into, people that Brett has not blocked. and then he hits you with, well, he's not going to be participating. He got a little sore knee situation. Oh, and we're going to do more tests. And he might not go on the trip to Cleveland. And by the way, Stephon Gilmore was here today. And that was it. Oh, all right. It's good that he's getting this out of the way before they go. And it's an impromptu Zoom because they are actually, as we speak, they are getting ready to depart for Cleveland. So it's on the fly. We're going to have it. The head coach, always willing to speak and give us the updates. At 11:30, I'm just crossing my fingers that it's positive and that the update is a good one. You know what I mean?
Yes, no, absolutely. Short term, it sucks. And it's ominous as you said, but just kind of putting the silver lining on it. Hey, they still have 3 quarterbacks in camp, including Mullins and Hall, and they'll have some arms there so Darnold doesn't have to get all the reps and put a ton of wear and tear on it against the Browns for 2 straight days and then play a bulk of the preseason games. It sucks that we're not going to be able to see him this week on the road in a different environment against a very, very good, if not top 5 defense in the league, with guys on both edges and just a front 7 that is hell to deal with. So we're not going to deal with McCarthy against him. We have to deal with short-term issues, and obviously the knee can be tricky. And let's just hope it's short term, and let's cross our fingers, like you said.
Well, I was talking to PA about it, and this game was always going to be different because of the joint practices, right. And that's where and into this week as part of the plan. Plan the work the plan. JJ was going to get more number 1 reps this week at some point through these joint practices. So this game itself on Saturday was always going to be a bit wonky. Maybe you don't see Sam Darnold at all on Saturday because of the work that he did during the joints. And so maybe JJ starts and he plays a quarter. And then it is the Nick Mullins show. We've been saving Nick. He didn't get any snaps against the Raiders. We were saving him for this big moment, the second preseason game after joints. And then a lot of Jaron Hall, maybe on Saturday. And Kevin Stefanski, I don't believe they played many of their ones. And they've had so many injury issues and are still working through it, right? Like Nick Chubb's coming back. I don't think Zadarius Smith or Dalvin Tomlinson have really been 100% since they've been in Cleveland. They want to get the quarterback moving in the right direction, all of those things. The healthier that they can be as of week 1, they care more about that. This was always going to be weird, but missing out on the opportunity long-term, not a big deal. But in the short term, the excitement of being able to see JJ in the joints against a Myles Garrett and that sort of thing, that was going to be awesome. And hopefully, again, we don't know for sure yet. We're just waiting. I hope we still get to see that this week, because I know the host of 9 to Noon is on fire right now about the ability to be standing next to that and also standing next to Kevin Stefanski while it happens. But the ability to see that, I hope we aren't going to miss out on that this week.
Yeah, let's hope not, because the history of this team with amazing preseason performances by quarterbacks and then knee issues immediately following thereafter, it's a sordid succession line. So let's just hope that it's just knee soreness and that they're holding him out for precautionary reasons, and that the explanation that KOC gives is a worthy one.
A couple more for you here, including Brett. You are also part of this. It's Best Case Scenario is the name of the show on Sundays.
Perhaps, Brett.
I'd go worst case scenario.
That's the name of the show. It's Worst Case Scenario on Sundays.
Yes.
11 to 1.
11 to 1.
Okay.
Although we will have a couple of supersized shows at the State Fair coming up 11 to 2. So you'll have a couple of 3-hour shows from us at the State Fair on Sundays. Worst case scenario.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah,
okay, so some fair shows. Sometimes they say never meet your heroes. This is one of those spots I think you should meet your heroes.
This is absolutely. Come on out and greet the people.
But the reason I bring that up, when I saw you this morning,
Yep.
you work on the news talk side, Robbie, and at some point between 9 and 10 on a regular basis, you come in really pumped up about something you guys were talking about down the hall. And it's usually when there's 20 seconds left in a spot break, and I just can't listen to you. And I'm like, I love you, Robbie. Okay, you're coming in, you got the 160 decibels rolling. But I kind of got some other stuff to do here, so let's catch up later, and then we do. But you were excited to tell me from a Vikings standpoint that Bo Richter is going to be on your show on Sunday. Tell me about Bo.
Yeah, so off of a monster preseason game number 1, and let's hope it continues into Cleveland this weekend. Bo Richter will be joining Worst Case Scenario on Sunday to talk about his career at Air Force and his first preseason game, obviously fresh off of the second preseason game coming up in Cleveland this weekend. Today is his birthday. So happy birthday to Bo. But
what is he, like 30?
He's actually 24.
He's 24, okay.
He spent 5 seasons at Air Force. He played from 2019 to 2023. He was in 36 games. He's a Midwest guy, Nordo. So he's from Illinois. He's not from out west. He's a Midwest guy. He's from Naperville, Illinois. He had a 40-inch vertical leap and ran a sub 4.6.
What's wrong with people being from the coast?
Well, no, I'm just saying you just
don't like that? You think they're all laissez-faire?
Well,
they're
he's
all
a football
surfers?
guy. Well, no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, in the words of our former head coach Mike Tice, Chicago's a tough guy town, and I guess Illinois is a football guy state, perhaps.
Yeah, he served in the Air Force,
yes,
that's
he did.
sweet.
Absolutely. And registered his first sack on the first snap of the second half.
Do you know if we're going to run into the Austin Cutting situation where there's an obligation post-schooling of service of some sort? You remember that, the former long snapper?
Yes, I do. I remember that. I don't think that
is that
he
on
will
your
be
list
called,
of questions?
I don't think that he will be called back into duty, although we do have several questions about kind of the training that he goes through in the regiment and how he splits his time between his studies and also his military duty and also his football duties as well. So very much looking forward to that conversation, which leads me to kind of the defensive line as a whole and where he fits in and the performances of some guys in preseason game number 1 and just throughout camp and that unit as a whole. And just how they're shaping up and the subtraction of Hunter and the addition of Grenard and then bringing in some undrafted free agents like Murphy and like Richter. And bringing back guys who have been there for a few years like Patrick Jones, who seems to have had a decent camp. It seems to be a pretty crowded room there, both at 3-tech, 5-tech, and on the end. And I just think Bo Richter stood out in preseason game number 1, and he's going to have every opportunity to make this roster when after the first couple of guys, there's definitely an opening for some opportunities. Would you agree?
Well, I'd agree with that. And we've coined it the land of opportunity in totality throughout the defense. And, there are individuals, Patrick Jones playing for his Vikings life, and the depth of both sides, whether it's the offensive line, Mr. Walter Rouse, looks like we might have somebody, albeit for now, certainly in the reserve category, but the ability to run waves with a defense just absolutely destitute in terms of talent and depth at the cornerback spot guys like Bo Richter showing up is fantastic. Now, you can run the interview however you want, Robbie. Mm-hmm. But my question for Bo is, at 6'1", 250 pounds, can he fit in the F-22 Raptor? Like, I don't know exactly what his pathway would be if he had continued in the career route in the Air Force. But I imagine these fifth-generation fighters, like they don't, like a guy like, I'm going to have to cut weight a little bit. I'm going to have to get on the treadmill. Yeah. There's a breathing situation in taking on 8, 9 Gs. I'm going to pass out. Yeah. You know, has Bo gone through that test? Maybe you can bring that up with him if you're able to see him on Sunday.
Absolutely. I plan on getting into a lot of military jargon with him.
Oh, and throw all the acronyms around.
Absolutely.
You know, we know how well it goes when you act like you've been there.
Yes.
These days.
Yes.
Yeah. When you just you allude or maybe infer something that
we're gonna have somebody set a line on the over under of number of Top Gun bongs that we're gonna play during the entire segment.
Thanks for hanging out with me.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to hearing Bo Richter with you on best case scenario.
Yes.
I prefer that route.
Okay.
Versus worst case scenario.
Okay.
But I'm excited to hear from Bo with you guys on Sunday because I loved what I saw against the Raiders and more of that real opportunity to make the team. That's super sweet.
Yeah. And again, he showed out in the first game. We're going to see what he does on Saturday. We're going to talk about it Sunday. Worst case scenario, 11-1. Thanks for inviting me in here for a couple of minutes of Viking talk this morning.
No, I appreciate it. And when we return, that's Robbie Rosenhaus. Who the hell is Robbie Rosenhaus? You just met him. And he works over down the hall at Twin Cities News Talk and finds his way down here a fair amount. When we return, a bunch of text messages by those of you that have not been blocked by Brett Blakemore at 64686, Bradshaw and Bryant, KFAN text line. We're going to run through those and continue the JJ McCarthy conversation up to an impromptu Zoom call from the head coach, some media availability virtually that we're going to air here and maybe get a little bit of updates on things as the team departs for Cleveland and the joint practices. Final hour, it's 9 to noon on the Fan. 64686, Bradshaw and Bryant, KFAN text line. If Brett blocks me, I'm canceling Twitch sub. You have a Twitch channel?
I do.
That people can subscribe to?
That is correct.
What's the name of it?
That's just Brett KFAN.
Brett KFAN? I don't have Twitch. That's the only reason I don't know.
But no, I can read that, and you can too. So not blocked.
That's proof. I did like this from Paul. Success at the pro level, especially on defense, requires an attitude. Not every successful college player has that, but many will pretend they do. And he uses Lewis Seen and Andrew Booth versus Ivan Pace Jr. and now Bo Richter. I love these rags to riches stories. Undrafted, in parentheses. Yeah, there is an element of that. And this team in particular specifically has found success in recent seasons. Ivan Pace being notable. Now, Bo Richter still has to make the team and then make some plays. So what we saw in one game, the same way we were talking about JJ McCarthy in the Open, one preseason game is not the telltale story of how a guy's career will go. Ryan from Cannon Falls, McCarthy looked great. He'll be our future, but let him be our future. My question, even if JJ or Sam plays Super Bowl level QB, are we only that position away from the big game? Is our team strong enough, or is the corner hole going to be too big to fill? And I'm hoping, I did have some audio originally before Kevin OConnell was set to do this Zoom coming up, and we're actually going to break in about a minute here so that we can at least be on time from him, mix in more text messages. If there's a little bit of a wait going on, we'll figure it out, but you'll hear from Kevin OConnell next segment. I had some audio from him talking yesterday, and he just kind of mentioned, hey, Stephon Gilmore was here, and it was a good meeting, and that's about it. Now, you've heard it probably, whether it was on the power trip, you saw, and I had some audio from Adam Schefter as well that I was going to use prior to, again, this Zoom thing where, hey, he's not going there to just kick the tires. We're at this stage of the preseason. We're at this stage of things specifically with a Stephon Gilmore. I've been receiving questions on the text line, Twitter, my personal text line, snail mail, smoke signals about Xavier Howard as well. Why aren't these guys on teams? Is it that they're looking for that one last fat deal based on age and things. This might be the last chance. Do they want to truly become guns for hire? PA was talking with Ben Gessling, and he said, is it a $5 million thing? Is that kind of what we're looking at? And Stephon Gilmore, at his age, it appears as though he might be entering that territory of these one-year deals versus a longer-term, secure and safe option. So I was going to play that audio for you. Hopefully he addresses it, but we're going to continue to talk about it as Stephon Gilmore in the building. Stephon Gilmore at a position the Vikings need, and Stephon Gilmore, as of now, not signed by the Vikings. So what's up with that? And we'll figure that out as we move along. But next, let's pause. We are anticipating to hear from the head coach, Kevin OConnell, addressing the media virtually this morning, and we're going to air it for you next right here on the Fans.
KFAN.
Welcome back, 9 to noon. Head coach Kevin OConnell, the Minnesota Vikings, is addressing the media via Zoom. Let's listen.
But as far as the timeline of the injury, that will be something determined during the procedure based upon, whether it can just be a cleanup or potentially a repair. That won't be able to be determined until that procedure takes place. So I really, would just be speculating on a timeline for a return at this point. But wanted to give you guys an update on that, after, as we talked about yesterday, coming in with some soreness a couple days after the game. I credit JJ for obviously being able to continue to play. He did not come out of the game from the injury, finished his night with his second touchdown pass. And at that point, kind of had reached the snap count that I was hoping to get him for the game, and at that point was taken out. But at no time did, he think it was something that would be something that would take him out of the football game, not allow him to play. Credit Tyler and his staff for, once JJ did come in yesterday, going through a real thorough process and identifying what was going on.
Okay, we'll have time for a couple questions. You can add your name to the chat or just please speak up now.
I mean, I'll speak up. Obviously, you can't talk to a timeline, but just really disappointing. I know meniscus sometimes is less serious, obviously, than an ACL or whatnot. But what is the mood then, just kind of hearing this after one preseason game?
Yeah, Don, I don't, I had a very, clear-cut plan and really was going to continue through that with JJ on the field, getting more and more reps and obviously coming off of a performance like he had where we felt strongly about where he was at in his development process. So really it's just, you hurt for him just in the short term here because he, had such a, daily process focus, all those things that I was really looking for in a young player at the position. And so first and foremost, we'll get this procedure done. We'll make sure that we're doing the right things for him to have the best possible recovery when that takes place. We do not know. Like I said, it would be speculating at this point. And I think it would also, be, something mood-wise where, obviously we don't want to, we didn't want JJ to get injured, but we don't know the severity yet. And that is honestly where we're at right now. And I think we're, hopefully having a shorter timeline than a longer timeline. But the most important thing right now is making sure from a medical standpoint that we've identified the potential or the injury, the potential severity will come when we, do that procedure. And at that point in time, I'll be giving you guys an update as that process plays out. But I think all of us will be kind of, staying optimistic, that hopefully it is the shorter term.
Kevin, to what extent will whoever makes the decision on which surgery it needs to be take into account sort of his very long-term prognosis versus the possibility that he could be available at some point this year?
Kev, will you just clarify that? Are you asking me for who's going to be making that decision?
Well, I'm just curious to what extent it'll be taken into account that he's got a long future here and how like a short-term surgery could affect his long-term future
I see what you're saying.
when
Yeah,
that
that's
decision gets made.
totally a medical decision. Certainly, what's best for the long-term health of JJ McCarthy will be the priority, and I don't, like I said, have that answer, and really won't be a part of determining that answer. Is the best thing I can tell you, because I have total, complete trust in our medical staff and also, the people that will be, performing the procedure.
Kevin, will you need to add another quarterback in the meantime?
We're going to take a look at it. JJ won't be making the trip to Cleveland as we kind of determine, the timeline of that procedure. And then we'll obviously, have Sam, Nick, and Jaron ready to roll. And then as we move forward, if we determine based upon kind of the plans for either practice or the preseason games, that may be something we might need to do. But at this point in time, we're not there yet.
Have time for one or two more questions. Pierre?
Kevin, is it safe to assume that the injury took place in game? And forgive me, did you say that there's a date on when the surgical procedure is going to take place?
Don't have the date as of right now. And it did take place in the game. Yes, it was, you could go back and watch 1,000 plays and try to figure it out. But yes, it did take place at some point in time in the game. And, thinking back and having watched it a few more times, I would just be speculating, because there wasn't a moment where, it was noticeable and or JJ experienced any immediate discomfort in the moment.
Last question, anyone?
Kevin, what's your confidence level in Sam Darnold at this point, having seen what you've seen this summer from him?
Yeah, as I said, post game, I thought Sam played really well in his 12 plays of work the other day, and really what that was, Kevin, was just a continued, pretty consistent performance from what we've seen on the practice field throughout training camp. Sam's had a really good camp, and my confidence level in Sam is very, very high at this point, and looking forward to seeing him continue his progression that we've had for him throughout the early part of camp into that first preseason game. Now we'll have a couple days of work with the Browns. And then obviously as we roll through the rest of these preseason games and more practices to kind of complete the training camp process here before we move into the regular season, I'm really looking forward to Sam's continued growth, success in the offense. And I know his teammates and the rest of the coaching staff have been really enthused by what Sam's done. And like I said, my confidence level is really high in Sam.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Head coach Kevin OConnell of the Minnesota Vikings addressing the media with an update prior to departing for Cleveland. Joint practices with the Minnesota Vikings and the Cleveland Browns. And as you heard it there, and they started a little early today, but we got most of it. We got 99% of the press conference. It has been announced that quarterback JJ McCarthy, at some point during Saturday's game, at some point during that nasty pick, the 170 yards and 2 TDs after the pick, delightful preseason debut for the rookie, that he suffered a meniscus injury. And so now, no surgery date. There's no date as of yet for the surgery, but his return time, even as we hear that update now, it's still very much in the air. So we know that there was a meniscus injury. That's the soreness that JJ McCarthy talked about when he came into the facility yesterday and after said tests. And that's where, even as we were handling in 9 to noon today, and I kind of joked about it. It was very casual. His knee was sore and we're looking at some more tests. And then it's just the ominous feeling of that combined with the impromptu Zoom situation with the press. It just felt weird. And apparently the knee felt weird. And so the return time for JJ McCarthy, after we spent a significant part of the show, should JJ play week 1? Should he start week 1? And the excitement built off of that preseason game, the excitement of finally getting to see what this kid could do, albeit in an exhibition environment, albeit against reserve defenders for the Las Vegas Raiders, the opportunity to see JJ do his thing. And he absolutely did it. He balled out. Well, now there is no question. Now it is. You know what's great? Sam Darnold, veteran experience, and we're going to be pumped up for Sam Darnold to start week 1. And instantly, as the text messages roll in, always appreciated, always loved. Wanted to talk about building the championship. Wanted to talk about Darnold is or not your guy. Was the interception a disqualifying moment for you? What are your concerns that you have about him at this stage? Are you still okay with the idea of Darnold playing the entire season? Have you built up enough hope now where you're able to let Kirk Cousins drift off into the mist, that we can finally stop talking about Kirk and just be excited about what we have? And a real tangible over the course of training camp, I've felt it. And PA, I know he's stuck in traffic somewhere on his way to the facility still. I know he felt a bit of that, just the attitude and the energy. There was an optimistic vibe, and I'm sure there still will be with the team. And now we just kind of move forward. We can kind of wash that talker off the whiteboard and continue forward with Sam Darnold. So the meniscus bit, as I understand it, as I know it, is the differing in recovery times is based on how they choose to deal with it once the surgery begins. And as you heard from Kevin OConnell there, it will be a purely medical decision. And if it's a trim, it'll be a few weeks. If it's a full repair, it could be multiple months. And now we wait for that information to come in as well. Joining us on the hotline from the road, I'm sure he heard the press conference, PA himself. Safe travels, of course, to Cleveland. But what hit you with that press conference we just heard from KOC?
The out-of-nowhere nature of it has a little metaphorical 2x4 to it. Even if you didn't think the kid was going to play in the first game or really at all next year, that point doesn't really matter to me right now. I'm here with Seahawk too, and he's going to have a little reaction for you. But it just goes back to some things that we were saying a few weeks ago, really in passing. It's like there's a common thread here, okay? And it's a common thread, from the tragic situation with Kyrie Jackson and the other two who sadly died, and then Jordan Addison and that weird situation in the car, and Mekhi Blackmon rips up his ACL, and then now we get this. So I mean, it's just the hits just keep on coming, and they're not the kind of hits the guy next to me makes when he makes records. And here's Seahawk.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to get on this bus and then on this plane right now to find out how the team feels and how they're dealing with this. Obviously, as PA was saying, they weren't expecting to be the starting quarterback this year, but we'll see how the team feels just mentally and how it is to see the kid that they're all becoming one with and starting to love go down like this early in the season. I think Coach has got a big job on his hand here, PA.
So that's the latest from Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center on your sports leader, FM 100.3 KFAN. With Wolf Blitzer, I'm Paul Allen. Have a great day.
Thank you for the report, gentlemen, and safe travels to Cleveland, all right? That's PA and Chris Hawkey, both traveling down to Cleveland with the team. I know screening's taking place right now. They should be on a plane shortly heading to Cleveland. And I'm already getting questions in. How do you handle Sam Darnold now with this? The optimism that we felt from Saturday, I don't think that changes in the long term. And both those guys hit on it. And the roadblocks, the mountains that have been placed in their way, physical ones, emotional ones, of course, the tragic side of Kyrie Jackson's passing, the more short-term frustration and disappointment of an injury like what took place with Mekhi Blackmon. Very different scenarios, but ultimately leading in that line of what else is this team going to have to deal with from the summertime on to now actually eventually playing games that matter. The hits keep on coming. And now with Justin Jefferson, this optimism on a Saturday, that doesn't change. Still super excited for JJ McCarthy, Still excited for McCarthy's development. Still excited for him ultimately in the end having a chance to be the franchise quarterback that we've wished upon him, that we have willed upon him since taking him 10th overall in April. Still excited to microanalyze and just absolutely soak in all of the details of the good, the bad, and the ugly with him growing. But just also absolutely gut punched with the setback. And that's kind of where we sit in the moment here. The meniscus in the long term. I saw, is it the turf? Is it this? It will be time to analyze and to dig into all of those related issues. But really just the toughest moment here is just the setback of the plan. The setback of the plan as it relates to growing JJ McCarthy. And again, opening the show, hey, do you think you should start the season? What excites you about him? There's a lot to be excited about. The arm strength is real. The in-pocket instincts are real. The mobility, although not at this particular moment, but eventually, again, it was real and it will be real again. Whether it's real in a month or it's real in 6 months, it's going to be there. The long-term excitement and how this has kind of forced us into a patient mode. We have to now remain patient yet again to see him not only back on the field, but when we're having these conversations, man, what if Darnold throws 3 picks in the Niners game week 2? Are you going to boo Sam? Or are you going to be, that rookie's looming? We saw what he could do against that Raiders defense. We saw him in the joints against Cleveland. We saw him in the Eagles game at Lincoln. Eagles fans don't throw unopened beer cans at opposing fans during the preseason. They save that stuff for later on. They save that for January. Eagles fans do at Lincoln. So it would not be quite the raucous environment that it would be in other settings. But all the same, thinking about that and then having him looming over the shoulder of Sam Darnold, that appears now, at least in the short term, like that's not going to be the case. So as it is, if they trim the meniscus once they get in there, it's a month, it's a few weeks, whatever that return time looks like. If they do decide to do a full repair, the return time is stretched out. And that's where we sit with JJ McCarthy. We just know that the meniscus injury is taking place and surgery is on the horizon. So now moving forward, there's the excitement, or I don't know if it's forced excitement. It depends on who you talk to with this Vikings fan base. It's a transition year. It's rebuilding. Sam Darnold's the same guy that we saw with the Jets or the Panthers. Now he's just here. Yeah, he's got better wide receivers, but he doesn't have it. And then there are those that are optimistic and look forward to the idea of him playing with more weapons, maybe a better scheme, a better coached operation than he's had the unfortunate task of dealing with in years past. Moving forward with Sam, that question as of now is totally answered. And how you feel about that and how to move forward in that stead. You guys, you across the border, you haven't had to deal with a lot of this over the course of time, have you, Brett?
I don't want to kick you while you're down at this particular point. I don't wish anyone to get injured, even with JJ being a Blackhawks fan. I still don't want him getting injured, so it's just brutal news. So I really do feel for you guys.
Why do you care that he's a Blackhawks fan? He grew up in the area.
Oh, yeah, of course. I don't like the Blackhawks. But I'm saying I was just trying to cut the tension a little bit.
That's the aura of winning. He never loses games. He lost like 3 games playing football. He grew up in the heart of the Kane and Taves era.
Must be nice.
It must be nice.
Yeah.
But now he's in the state of hockey. Yeah,
But no, I don't. It's just brutal. And if you're gonna try to draw silver linings on it and go, the meniscus isn't the worst case scenario, trademark Sundays, that's great, but it's still just, it sucks that happened this early on. Does it change anything for this season particularly? Because we knew that Darnold's going to start anyways, most likely. Probably not, but you still don't wish that on anybody.
Well, and that's really the key to it is the gut punch is real. This just sucks at a base level. That and I'm trying to fight that. There's the childish Rube from Mankato in me. That's just we're cursed. You can't have nice things, etc. These are things that Packers fans don't feel often, so you can't relate to it, but we can over here. I just want him to get better and get back on the field. And now moving forward, we can kind of in some ways change the conversation as JJ will eventually get surgery and eventually he'll be on the mend and eventually he'll be on the field. But in the meantime, now we can just talk about what this offense looked like with Sam Darnold. And it looked pretty good in that series against the Las Vegas Raiders. Fighting through the helmet issues, a couple of really nice passes. Ty Chandler dropping an L on him with an easy catch. And then he had another one that was somewhat contested, but would have liked to see him catch that front side of the end zone on that opening drive. But in the end, what does this team look like with Darnold? And now, even with these joints, I didn't think you were going to see Darnold in the preseason game on Saturday as it was, but how careful are they going to be with him as now the quarterbacks? I'm glad I forgot who it was during the presser, but somebody asked him, are you going to pick up another guy? And I assume that's something that they have talked about, but they know their guys. They know what they have in Mullins. Mullins can operate the offense. Mullins can put you in a spot to win a game, and then he can actually just snatch it away from you by throwing it to the other team, unfortunately. But Mullins knows the offense. And then, there's Jaron Hall. Jaron Hall exists on this roster as well. And now that's the lot in life. That's the reality. That is the depth chart. That is the depth chart for your Minnesota Vikings. So 9 to noon, kind of ending on a sour note. Starting out, okay, there's some knee soreness, but we're gonna do the 9 for 9. We're gonna do JJ's 9 to open the show. Do you think he should start the season? What excites you about JJ after that preseason game? If you're Sam Darnold, how do you feel about all this hype, right? You're just trying to resurrect your career here in Minnesota, and everyone wants to talk about the rookie. What do you think of the team into the season? How that in its own right may have changed over the last 3 hours? Maybe it didn't. Because you're still comfortable with the concept that the plan is the plan is development, the plan is time. And therefore, Sam Darnold was going to start either way, which did feel that feels like the right answer. And that's kind of been the side that I've been on since minute one. But now hearing this setback taking place, how does that interact with the quote unquote plan? And if your personal plan was somewhere around the bye week, if the team's like 1-4 coming home from London, and you were kind of thinking, I know it's the Kitties, I know they're by far the favorite to win the NFC North. But out of the bye, coming home to U.S. Bank Stadium, let's debut the rookie against the Kitties, see how he handles Terry and Arnold and Aiden Hutchinson and all those guys. Well, now we got to wait a little bit. So that's the gut punch. We got to wait a little bit longer. We still have Sam, still got the other JJ as in Justin Jefferson, and we shall move forward. So tomorrow, 9 to noon, there's going to be more coverage of this, I'm sure, as PA will be live in Cleveland for the next couple of days as part of the joint practices. He'll do a Friday feast from Cleveland as well on Friday, but more conversation about that. We're going to have the opportunity to hear from some Vikings coaches over the next couple of days, so how that sits, how this has impacted that energy and that aura that we've talked about that we see around the team over the course of camp, how the hits keep coming, and how the team keeps shouldering said hits and moving forward. Thank you to Brett for stepping in. Thank you to Ben Gessling for joining us. And thank you for listening to 9 to noon. The Grum is next. It's the Fan. Have a great afternoon.